Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at a brand new $16 million factory in Beijing.
Right.
But this place, it doesn't manufacture cars or microchips or, smartphones. It manufactures a highly complex, uniquely engineered biological cancer drug. And here's the kicker. It is for exactly one person.
It's just one person, yeah.
Yeah, and they claim they can do it in 24 hours.
Which is, it completely shatters the traditional industrial model. We are so used to the idea of economies of scale, right?
Right, like stamping out identical pills.
Exactly. Stamp out 1 million identical pills, put them in a bottle, ship them out. This is the exact opposite. It is hyper-personalization at scale. You're combining oncology, robotics, and, honestly, industrial policy into a single facility.
So our mission today is to figure out how artificial intelligence is moving out of the realm of digital chatbots and into these physical automated factories designed to fight cancer.
It's a huge shift.
It really is. And to do that, we have a fascinating stack of sources to go through. We are pulling from clinical trial registries, specifically clinicaltrials.gov.
Which is always good for the hard data.
Right, exactly. Along with corporate press releases from Beijing Likang Life Sciences. We're also weaving in biotechnology and industry analysis from Good Machine and LaPasse Voice. Plus, we've got some incredibly revealing macro innovation data from the Nature Index.
And, the diversity of those sources is what makes this so compelling to me.
Oh, for sure.
Because you can't look at this just as a medical story. The science is, well, it's only half the equation. The other half is the global infrastructure race to actually build the machines that build the medicine.
Which brings us to the hook that just jumped out at me immediately when I was reading through this. Right now, the West, right? Like pioneers like Moderna and BioNTech.
Big names, yeah.
The big names, they are still piloting personalized cancer vaccines, largely in research-grade labs. It's a very artisanal, hands-on process. But China has just broken ground on this 110 million yuan facility in the Beijing Economic and Technological Development Zone.
Right, to put these bespoke vaccines on an actual automated assembly line.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack this, because I think we need to start with the basics. Why does a cancer vaccine need to be personalized in the first place? If we have a universal vaccine for something like polio, why can't we just make one universal shot for melanoma?
Right, it's a great question. And it comes down to because of how cancer actually originates. So viruses like polio or influenza, they are external invaders.
Right, they come from the outside.
Exactly, they have a universal structure.
Yeah.
So if you and I both catch the same flu strain, that virus looks relatively identical to both of our immune systems.
Okay, that makes sense.
So a mass-produced vaccine works because it teaches millions of immune systems to recognize that one specific shared invader. But cancer, on the other hand, well, it's an inside job.
Right.
It is your own cells mutating and basically going rogue.
So there is no universal, cancer bug to target?
Precisely zero. The genetic mutations driving your tumor are entirely unique to your biology. Nobody else has them.
Wow.
Yeah. And when a tumor mutates, it expresses these microscopic mutant protein fragments on its surface. In immunology, we call these neoantigens.
Neoantigens, okay.
Right. Think of a neoantigen as a molecular fingerprint that is found only on the surface of your specific tumor.
Just yours.
Just yours. So if you want to fight that tumor effectively, you have to build a vaccine custom-tailored to teach your immune system to hunt for those exact fingerprints.
Okay, so the analogy I kept thinking of when I was reading the Good Machine analysis,
Yeah.
it's about the current Western standard for manufacturing these personalized vaccines, which, takes about 4 to 8 weeks right now.
Another blizzard analogy.
Yes. It's like trying to order a custom-tailored suit while you are trapped in a freezing blizzard.
It paints a very vivid, if slightly terrifying picture.
Right. But it totally tracks because the tailor has to take your measurements. They have to source the fabric, carefully stitch it together over a month or two. But by the time that beautiful, perfectly fitting suit finally arrives...
You might have already frozen to death.
Exactly. For an advanced cancer patient, 4 to 8 weeks is an absolute eternity. The tumor is growing and mutating that entire time.
And that time delay is arguably the single greatest biological bottleneck in this field right now.
It's just too slow.
Way too slow. And to understand why it takes weeks, you really have to look at the manual labor involved.
Okay, walk me through it.
So first, you take a biopsy of the patient's tumor. Then you sequence its genome.
Right.
Then a team of computational biologists has to sift through thousands of mutations to figure out which handful of neoantigens might actually trigger an immune response.
Which sounds incredibly tedious.
It is. And then you have to design the mRNA sequence, synthesize it in a lab, purify it, test it, and every single one of those steps involves manual handoffs, like human technicians literally holding pipettes.
Enter Beijing Likang Life Sciences.
Exactly.
Founded in 2017 by Dr. Li Chen, who the sources note was actually recognized as an MIT Technology Review Innovator under 35.
And what's fascinating here is how Likang is approaching this bottleneck.
Right, because they aren't just telling people to work faster.
No, they aren't just trying to make the human lab technicians, pull all-nighters. They are fundamentally replacing the manual computational work with an artificial intelligence platform.
They call it the Likang neoantigen epitope analysis, right? Or LNEA.
It's LNEA. The AI is doing the heaviest lifting in their workflow. The platform takes the raw sequencing data from the patient's tumor biopsy and essentially digitizes the bottleneck.
Okay, so what is it actually doing with that data?
It cross-references the patient's mutations with massive global oncological registries.
And from what I gathered in the good machine breakdown, it's not just looking for a simple match, right? It uses deep learning to predict the actual 3D spatial geometry.
Yes, the 3D structure.
And the binding affinity of those mutated proteins. Like, it's calculating how tightly a patient's T cell could physically latch onto that specific neoantigen.
And that is the critical threshold. I mean, a tumor might have 10,000 mutations, right?
Right.
But only 5 of them might have the right physical shape to act as a target for the immune system, like a puzzle piece.
So if the human researchers guess wrong?
If they guess wrong and design a vaccine for the wrong 5 mutations, the drug does absolutely nothing.
Wow. Okay, so the stakes are incredibly high.
Exactly. So the AI platform runs those spatial predictions in silico, filtering out all that noise in minutes instead of weeks.
That is wild.
And it doesn't stop at prediction. It automates the generation of the mRNA sequence design itself. By offloading that immense analytical burden to AI, Likang is trying to compress a multi-week bespoke lab process into a 24-hour turnaround.
Which brings us to the actual drug they are manufacturing using this AI design. Let's look closely at LK101. That's their flagship product.
Right, LK101.
And the clinical trial registries show this isn't just a standard mRNA vaccine like, the ones we got for COVID-19.
No, it's much more complex.
Yeah. It combines mRNA technology with the patient's own dendritic cells. And since we are diving deep here, dendritic cells are essentially the intelligence officers of your immune system.
I love this analogy.
Right. Imagine them wearing tiny little trench coats, patrolling your bloodstream.
Just looking for trouble.
Exactly. Their entire job is to capture suspicious material, memorize what it looks like, and present that intel to the T cells. And the T cells are the foot soldiers that actually deploy and destroy the threat.
The trench coat visual actually helps explain the mechanism perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what Likang is doing with LK101 is taking the patient's dendritic cells out of their blood, and in a facility, they transduce those cells with the AI-designed mRNA.
Okay, I want to pause on that word, transduce, because La Paz Voice uses it a lot in their reporting. And to put it simply, transducing is basically wrapping this mRNA instruction manual in a microscopic delivery vehicle, like a harmless lipid nanoparticle.
Right.
And then they are smuggling it through the dendritic cell's outer wall. You are essentially hacking the intelligence officer by sneaking a highly detailed dossier of the enemy right into their briefcase.
That is exactly it. And that smuggled dossier tells the dendritic cells exactly how to manufacture the tumor's specific neoantigens.
Okay.
So the cells express those neoantigens on their surface, and then you inject them back into the patient.
And what happens then?
Well, because dendritic cells are the most potent antigen-presenting cells in the human body, they provoke a massive hyper-targeted T-cell army to hunt down the cancer.
That is incredible.
And just as importantly, they help establish long-term immunological memory. So if the cancer tries to return months or even years later, the immune system already knows what to look for.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, but also where I think we need a serious reality check.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because the sources report some early clinical trial data for LK101 that made me to do a double take.
The survival rates?
Yes. They are reporting a 100% 5-year survival rate in a cohort of liver cancer patients.
Right.
And in a separate group with melanoma, they saw doubled progression-free survival. Now, let's be honest. 100% survival in advanced liver cancer sounds like science fiction.
It does.
And the good machine analysis highlights the catch here. We are looking at a sample size of just 24 people.
Yes, 24, yeah.
So my immediate thought is, are we jumping the gun here? Like, this feels like statistical noise masking itself as a miracle cure.
Your skepticism is not only warranted, it is mathematically necessary.
Okay, good.
Because an N of 24, meaning a trial with only 24 patients, is a signal. It is a proof of concept. It is not, under any circumstances, definitive proof of a cure.
Right.
Liver cancer is notoriously complex. Survival rates fluctuate wildly depending on, well, the underlying cause of the liver disease, the exact stage at diagnosis, the patient's baseline health.
There are just too many variables.
Exactly. In a cohort of 24, a few outliers who happen to respond exceptionally well can skew the entire percentage.
Now, the melanoma data feels a bit more grounded to me, mostly because Western biotech companies have reported similar early-stage signals in their own bespoke vaccine trials.
Which adds credibility to the biological pathway itself, sure. But the caveat remains immovable. Phase 3 clinical trials, which require testing hundreds or thousands of patients across multiple demographics and clinical sites.
They take years.
They take years, and they are still the ultimate gating events. That is the global standard for proving efficacy.
So we shouldn't be printing the cancer is cured headlines today based on 24 people?
No, definitely not.
But the sources also make it clear we can't just dismiss LK101 as vaporware either. I mean, the regulatory milestones they have hit are incredibly rigorous.
Oh, they're passing the gatekeepers. Likang received implied approval for clinical trials from China's National Medical Products Administration, the NMPA, back in March 2023. But the milestone that forces the global industry to really pay attention is that they secured an investigational new drug, or IND, approval from the US SBA.
And that just happened in February 2025.
Exactly.
And you do not get an FDA IND by handing over some sloppy spreadsheet of 24 patients. You have to present rigorous, peer-reviewable, early-stage safety and efficacy data.
The FDA scrutinizes everything. The manufacturing chemistry, the preclinical animal models, the exact protocols for human testing. Securing that IND validates that the underlying science of LK101 is structurally sound enough to warrant formal U.S. trials.
Which provides the perfect bridge to the real story this week.
The manufacturing.
Exactly. The breakthrough being reported in these sources isn't just a medical drug, it's the industrial machine building the drug, because the transition from a small clinical trial to a phase 3 trial requires scaling up.
Right.
And how do you scale up a drug where the batch size is exactly one person? You need a factory.
The manufacturing floor is where the actual revolution is happening here. I mean, the science of personalized mRNA is advancing everywhere, but breaking ground on this 110 million yuan facility, which is about $16.1 million in the Beijing zone, that is about solving the physical engineering problem of N-of-1 medicine.
I was reading the La Paz voice breakdown of how this factory is supposed to operate, and honestly, it sounds like a semiconductor clean room.
It pretty much is.
They are relying heavily on advanced robotic fluid handling because, I mean, think about it. If every single product coming down the assembly line is for a different human being, your biggest existential threat isn't just speed, it's cross-contamination.
Oh, absolutely.
If patient A's mRNA sequence accidentally gets mixed with patient B's dendritic cells, the drug is completely ruined.
And standard quality control falls apart here.
What do you mean?
Well, if you manufacture 1 million Askman tablets, you can randomly test a few hundred to ensure batch purity.
Right, you just pull them off the line.
Exactly. You pull them off the line, you destroy them to analyze them, and you still have 999,000 pills left. But when the entire batch is a single dose for a single patient, you cannot destroy the product to test it.
Ah, right. That brings us to one of the coolest technological solutions mentioned in the sources. Digital twins.
Yes. Digital twins.
Instead of having human technicians tracking vials with clipboards, the factory creates a real-time virtual replica of the physical manufacturing process.
And the digital twin runs in parallel to the physical robotic arms.
Yeah.
It tracks everything. The fluid viscosity, the exact volume being pipetted, the incubation temperature, the specific mRNA transcription microsteps, all in real time.
That is so futuristic.
It is. It verifies that the digital sequence the LNEA AI designed is identically matching what the robotics are producing on the floor down to the millisecond. And by removing the humans, you remove the primary vector for contamination and error.
And crucially, you drive down the cost. The pricing asymmetry highlighted in the reporting is just wild.
It's a huge factor.
Right now, LK101 is available in what's known as the Hainan Medical Pilot Zone. It's a specialized area in China designed for early access to experimental therapies. And the sources state it costs roughly $22,000 per injection.
Right.
And a full therapeutic course requires 7 injections, which brings the total to about $140,000. Now, to your average citizen, $140,000 is the price of a small house. It is brutally expensive.
It is a staggering amount of money for an individual, but we have to contextualize that number within the current landscape of bespoke medicine.
Yeah, because compared to Western equivalents, it's practically a discount.
Exactly.
Look at personalized CAR-T cell therapies in the United States. Those can easily exceed $500,000 just for the manufacturing of the drug.
Just for the drug.
Yeah, and that doesn't even factor in the extended ICU hospital stays often required to manage the severe immune side effects.
And that $140,000 price tag for Likang, that is their early-stage, low-volume pilot zone pricing. Yep. The entire economic thesis of this automated factory, which is slated for completion in October 2026, is that industrialization will cause those unit economics to plummet. They're trying to turn a boutique, artisanal lab experiment into an industrialized commodity.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the question that just screams out from these sources is, why China?
Right.
The United States pioneered mRNA technology. The West has these dominant pharmaceutical giants. How did a company in Beijing manage to put an AI-driven N-of-1 cancer vaccine on a robotic assembly line first?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Nature Index data actually provides a very clear map of the macro innovation ecosystem.
Okay, what does the data say?
It confirms that the United States still heavily leads the world in overall biological sciences.
Which makes sense.
Right. However, the data also shows China is rapidly closing the gap, specifically in corporate and applied research output. And the mechanism driving that speed is a heavily integrated, state-driven model.
The Jacob Dreyer analysis in Nature outlines this dynamic beautifully. In the West, biotech innovation is often driven by venture capital, right?
Classic Silicon Valley model.
Yeah, a couple of brilliant researchers spin a company out of a university, pitch to VCs, raise a Series A, and basically just hope they don't run out of money before clinical trials.
Right.
But in China, the approach is institutional. The sources detail government initiatives like the TORCH program.
And the TORCH program is arguably one of the most aggressive, state-sponsored commercialization efforts in modern history.
Wow.
Its explicit purpose is to bridge the valley of death between academic research and commercial manufacturing.
So they aren't just handing out small grants.
No. Yeah.
Heavy state innovation funds pour billions into these high-risk academic spin-offs. Likang, for example, heavily utilizes a talent pool of researchers from Tsinghua University, which is one of the premier technical institutions in the country.
Right.
It almost feels like the Chinese government is acting as a massive, aggressive venture capitalist on a sovereign scale. They know that in early-stage biotech, 90% of startups are going to fail.
They expect it.
Exactly. But they are willing to absorb those massive financial losses because the few companies that do survive and succeed will redefine entire global industries.
And we have seen this exact industrial playbook executed before.
Right. Look at electric vehicles with companies like BYD or global battery dominance with CATL.
Yep.
They identify a strategic sector, throw immense capital and state resources at it, and achieve dominance through sheer manufacturing scale and automation. With Likang, the government facilitates this by removing bureaucratic friction. They fast-track regulatory pathways through the NMPA, and they provide the physical infrastructure, like that Beijing Economic and Technological Development Zone, literally paving the roads for the factory.
The integration between academia, the private sector, and the state creates this hyper-accelerated feedback loop. However,
There's always a however.
There is. And maintaining strict impartiality regarding the sources here, the Nature article points out that this state-driven model faces significant criticism.
So it's definitely not a frictionless utopia.
Far from it. Critics argue that heavy state investment can severely distort market signals.
How so?
Well, when a government props up companies, regardless of early profitability, it can keep inefficient, poorly run biotech firms alive far longer than a free market would ever allow.
Which leads to a lot of wasted money.
Massive capital waste. And furthermore, for Western nations and global competitors, there are deep, ongoing concerns regarding intellectual property.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. When new Chinese biotech firms are rapidly spun off from collaborative international academic research, tracing the true ownership of those AI models and genetic databases becomes a massive geopolitical friction point.
But regardless of the criticisms or, the friction, the physical momentum they're generating is undeniable. Because of this state-backed push, the reporting shows that the Asia-Pacific region now boasts a denser cluster of neoantigen and AI biotech companies than the West.
And Likang is really just the tip of the spear. You have Everest Medicines, which is another Chinese firm, holding a parallel FDA IND for their own AI-derived tumor algorithm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you have groups like KAIST in South Korea building entirely new computational models for immune response. The center of gravity for the physical manufacturing of these specific AI-driven therapies is visibly shifting eastward.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now?
That's the big question.
If you are a patient or you have a family member currently navigating a cancer diagnosis, the immediate takeaway from all these sources is to stay grounded.
Very important.
Personalized mRNA cancer vaccines, whether designed by AI or humans, are still experimental. The 24-hour robotic factory is still under construction and won't be online until 2026. Clinical trials remain the only safe, rigorously tested, and meaningful pathway forward, whether you're looking at trials from Moderna, BioNTech, or the U.S. trials for Likang.
Right.
This is not the time to book a medical tourism flight to Hainan looking for a guaranteed miracle cure.
Absolutely. And if you are an investor, a researcher, or a policy reader tracking global macro trends, the East-West Bio-AI gap just updated its data points in a major way. The West may have pioneered the underlying biological science of mRNA, but the infrastructure asymmetry, who is actually laying the concrete and building the physical factories to scale it, is compounding rapidly.
The race is really moving from the laboratory bench to the factory floor.
It is. Which leaves us with one final, broader question to ponder as we step away from the sources today.
What's that?
Well, as artificial intelligence successfully collapses the time and cost of hyper-personalized medicine, transforming it from a slow, artisanal craft into a 24-hour automated assembly line, will the ultimate cure for cancer look less like a traditional pharmaceutical pill and more like a real-time personalized software update for your immune system?